Today I'd like to talk to you on the subject, breakthroughs that build your dream. Recently I wrote a book called Put Your Dream to the Test. It's really a book that kind of helps you and me look at the dream that we have and ask 10 questions that will help us to know whether we have high odds of achieving our dream or not. How many of you remember when you were in school, maybe before a big test day, your teacher, your prof would get the class together and say, now on Friday, I'm going to ask these questions on the test. And they literally would give us the questions they were going to ask on the test. And we'd write them down and hopefully find good answers and study, because we knew in a few days that's what we were going to be looking at. That's what we're going to be facing. And those profs and teachers did it for one very simple reason. They wanted us to pass the test. And when I wrote the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, and I designed 10 questions that you and I need to ask ourselves as we pursue our dream, the whole purpose of the book was to help people that have a dream pass that test. I was recently in Washington, D.C. with about 80 high-level executives, mainly CEOs, and I was spending a couple of days with them teaching them leadership, and I taught them a little bit out of the Put Your Dream to the Test book. And we did a little survey with them before the seminar began, and we asked how many of them had a dream, how many of them had achieved the dream, how many had given up on the dream. And it was a very interesting survey, and I was looking forward to the results because these are very high successful people. Every one of them had a dream, which that didn't surprise me at all. But 50%, just a hair under 50%, said that they had not yet achieved their dream. And 25% said they'd given up on it. And these are high-level successful people. And it just, again, helped me become more determined to help people discover their dream and then give them helps on how to get their dream, how to achieve their dream. The thesis of the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, is kind of simple. Basically, the thesis is the more reasons you have to achieve your dream, the higher the odds are that you will. The more reasons that you and I have to achieve a dream in our life, the higher the odds are that we will. Basically, what I mean by that is if a person only has one dream, one reason to achieve a dream, they only kind of have one kind of motivating force in their life. Maybe it's, maybe they when they were young, they just kind of glamorized it. But if you only have one reason to pursue your dream, because dreams are tough and difficult, pretty soon there'll be so much adversity that you'll give up that reason. But the more good reasons you have to achieve a dream, the less you want to let it go. And so when adversity comes, which it does to all dreams, if you have a lot of good, solid reasons for wanting to achieve that goal and that dream, you'll just hold on to it a lot more. And so the 10 questions that are in the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, are the 10 reasons for you to have a dream. Now, as I was writing the book, and this lesson is kind of an addendum to the book. It's not the book at all. What I'm sharing with you today isn't in the book, but it's a partner of the book. Because as I looked at the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, and I looked at putting together a training kit for people such as you, I realized that there was a part that was missing in the book that I wanted to add that will help you kind of what I would call fill in the gaps in your dream journey, okay? And that's what these breakthroughs are. These breakthroughs, in fact, in your notes, I'll define it, are events that mold us and move us forward. There's a molding change DNA in a breakthrough. We're never the same when we've had a breakthrough internally, and we're never the same when we had a breakthrough externally, because they mold us and then they move us. They change us, and then we go forward closer to that dream. And so when I talk about the breakthroughs, I want you to think of the fact that it will change you inwardly and it will move you outwardly. Now, I think one more kind of intro piece here before I really go through the breakthroughs and just kind of knock those out. They're very simple. Is I think I would like to define a dream for you. And I don't have that in your notes, so you're going to have to write it down, but you've got plenty of paper. In fact, when I was preparing this lesson the other day, I thought, I probably should have included them, but I'll go slow, and I want you to kind of have a sense of what I define as a dream. I think a dream is an inspiring picture of the future. Let's just start there. It's an inspiring picture of the future that energizes your mind, will, and emotions. I think a dream is an inspiring picture of the future that energizes your mind, will, and emotions, empowering you. Once you're energized, your mind, your will, and emotions are energized, it empowers you to do everything you can to achieve it. A dream is an inspiring picture of the future that energizes your mind, will, and emotions, empowering you to do everything you can to achieve it. Now, that's why I like that definition of a dream, by the way, is that a lot of dreams are fantasies, a lot of dreams are just emotional. But if you'll look there, I really center in on the fact that if you have an inspiring picture of the future, it'll not only energize your emotions, it'll energize your will, and it'll energize your mind. It'll engage how you think, it'll engage your tenacity, and it'll engage how you feel. And when those things happen, that becomes empowering. The dream becomes empowering to then cause us to want to do everything that we possibly can do to achieve it. Okay. Let me start back in 1971. This is going to be a narrative of just my journey. And it is being given to stimulate thought in your mind, and we'll ask questions to ourselves at each breakthrough. But it's got to start in 1979. I'm a pastor of a small church in southern Indiana, and I want to teach people stewardship. I want to teach them how to use their time, their talent, their tithe for God. And it's a little church. I'm talking about 35 people, okay, little country church. And so I decided to do a stewardship series. The first preaching series that I ever did was on stewardship. And so I had handouts for them, and I did little painted signs, which were just as hokey as could be. I mean, you can't even believe. I had in this little building. I'm talking about little building. Only seated about 80 people. I had 17 signs up. I mean, you couldn't look anywhere. There was not a space without a sign. And my first message was I literally walked around the building and pointed to every sign and then exhorted, and the next sign, and I would exhort. And Margaret and I painted them in our garage. And I want to tell you something. I would give $10,000 today if I could just have one of those signs. Because I would hold it up to you. And you would see this sign and you would say, God has been very good to him. Very good to him. Because you can't imagine how bad they were. They were my best, but you can't imagine how bad they were. And for that month, I taught stewardship to my congregation, and it really worked. It clicked in from day one. In fact, from that moment on, every year for 25 years of pastoring, I taught stewardship every year for a month to my congregations. And I would look at them and I would say, you're going to grow spiritually more in this month than any other month of the year, and I guarantee it happens in your life and my life, because very simply, when you start to talk about stewardship, you deal with lordship issues. What am I going to do with my time? What am I going to do with my money? What am I going to do with my giftedness? You cannot deal with stewardship without dealing with lordship. And the moment that you deal with lordship, you're going to grow, because that's basically who's going to call the shots in your life. And the stewardship month was so successful. And so there were a group of pastors. I'm talking about a small group in our district. I'm 35, 45 pastors who had found out about the success of it, and they wanted me to teach them how I did it. And to be honest with you, for about a week I didn't want to, because I had this wrong idea in the beginning, that it was kind of me against them, and if I could get my church growing faster, and I was playing that political stupid game that people play. And so for about a week I didn't want to share it with them, and then I thought, well, yeah, I'll do it. And I remember us getting together at a campground, and I probably spent 2 hours teaching them how I taught stewardship. And I saw lights go on all over the room. And I saw pastors say, thank you, I've got this. And they went to their churches and they started teaching people stewardship and started really helping their congregations understand this principle. Now, here's the birth of the dream, of my dream to add value to people, started there. For the first time in my life, I saw that I had the ability to say things and do things that could help other people get better. And I could never express the feeling I had at the birth of my dream as I walked away from that little camp experience saying, I was born for this. I was born to do things that work, to turn around and give them to other people that will work for them and teach them how to transfer these principles and concepts and these practices. I was born for this. And so my dream was birthed out of adding value to people. That's where it began. But as I look at my dream journey, not only did I have to ask myself the 10 questions that are in the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, but I had to have some help because dreams are difficult and you have to have some help. And these are breakthroughs that I had that helped me break through. They literally helped me go to another level that if I wouldn't have had them, I perhaps would not have. And as I give you my breakthroughs, I want you to look at your dream. What's your dream? And I want you to ask yourself, have I had this breakthrough yet? And I'm going to guarantee you some of the breakthroughs I've had, you're going to identify with and say, oh my, I've already been there. Oh yes, ooh, I remember that one. And by the way, you remember all your breakthroughs. So I had a person one time say, well, you know, I'm sure I've had a momentous breakthrough in my life, but I can't remember it. No, if you can't remember it, it wasn't a breakthrough. It might have been a breakup, a breakdown, a breakover. It might have been a lot of breaks. But a breakthrough, you never forget. So let me just kind of label these for you and walk you through them quickly. Number one, the first breakthrough that kind of built my dream was what I call my ground breaker. This one broke ground for me. In other words, this ground breaker encouraged me to start. It broke new ground. Now, you know the dream. The dream is to add value to people. But in 1972, as I sat in a Holiday Inn restaurant with Kurt Kampmeyer, he looked across the table and asked me what my personal plan for growth was. I didn't have one. I was embarrassed that I didn't have one. I stumbled for a while. Finally, I looked at him and said, I don't have a plan for growth. And that day in 1972, Kurt looked at me across the breakfast table and said, John, the only way that you're ever going to reach your potential is to have a personal growth plan. And that was a huge breakthrough for me because up to that moment, I never realized I needed a personal growth plan. All of my life, I had been basically in learning experiences by going to school and college and curriculum and things like that. And I somehow had this idea that when I finished my college work, that was done and now I could get on with my work. And little did I realize that I had to continually, on a daily basis, improve myself. And so this was my first breakthrough. And here's what's interesting is, look at the dream. The dream is to add value to others, add value to people. The first breakthrough I had wasn't adding value to others at all. It was adding value to me. The personal growth plan was for me to get better. And I didn't put it all together that day. I wasn't smart enough. I didn't realize that if I could get better myself, I could help people get better. What I could learn, I could pass on to others, that you cannot give what you do not have. I didn't have any of this understanding at all in my life. All I knew is that day I needed to develop a personal growth plan. And if I could develop a personal growth plan, that would add value to me. And what I want you to know about your dream, whatever it is there are parts of your dream where it will look like you're serving yourself. But I wasn't serving myself to serve myself. I was serving myself so I could serve others. I was getting better so others could get better. I didn't realize it at that time because I had a passion to grow. But that was my first breakthrough. It was the groundbreaker. It broke ground for me. It got me going. It got me started in this dream of adding value to people. Breakthrough number two was what I call the icebreaker. When you think of an icebreaker, you think of the fact that you maybe were clogged up and couldn't get going very well, and all of a sudden somebody broke the ice for you. Maybe it's in a conversation with a group of people. Maybe you met somebody. Maybe it's an acquaintance that got you a job. But it was an icebreaker. It kind of thawed everything out, and it really got you moving. And the icebreaker for me encouraged me to share with others. It's not enough for me to grow. Now I'm already beginning to understand that what I'm growing in, I must share with others. And I can tell you exactly when it happened. It happened on July 4th, 1976. I'm a 29-year-old pastor, and it happens to be the 200th anniversary birthday of America. And we're having an outdoor rally, and we have about 5,000 people. We only had about 30,000 people in our town. And we had about 5,000 people at an outdoor rally, and I'm preaching about America needs revival, and about halfway through the message, God spoke to me, the clearest He's ever spoke to me in my life, and said, John, you're going to have a ministry with leaders. Now, up to that point, never thought about having a ministry with leaders, wasn't any kind of passion of mine, but I knew He spoke, and on the way home that day, I shared with Margaret. I said, Margaret, this is really weird. I'm up there teaching on America Needs Revival, not even thinking about leadership at that point. And I said, I can tell you, God spoke to my heart, and I'm going to have a ministry with pastors and leaders. And she looked at me and said, well, John, what are you going to do about it? I said, nothing. Absolutely nothing. If this is a God thing, He'll open the doors. I learned a long time ago, if it's a God thing, you don't need a crowbar. You don't need a bulldozer. If it's a God thing, the doors will open. And that very week, I received 2 opportunities, first-time opportunities, to come and speak to pastors about how our church was growing and about leadership. And it was an icebreaker for me. Now, notice this. All of a sudden, I've gone from adding value to others to adding value to myself so I can grow. Now watch how the dream just kind of matures and expands. Now I'm starting to add value to leaders. Didn't start off that way. I just wanted to add value to people. But the others that I was supposed to add value to was going to be basically leaders. Now, let me stop for a moment. Let me back up to the groundbreaker. I would encourage you on your own time, obviously not now, to ask yourself, what is the groundbreaker in my dream? What broke the soil and got me started? I would like you to ask yourself, what was the icebreaker in my dream? Because all dreams kind of get started and then real quickly get clogged. I mean, that's just part of the process. What kind of broke the ice and got me through and started me moving again? And the sequence I'm giving to you is just how it happened to me. Your sequence on icebreakers, groundbreakers may be different. That's not important at all. But what I'm saying is, to receive and achieve your dream, you're going to almost have to have these breakthroughs that I think are wonderful because they're God things. They're beyond you. They're beyond me. They're bigger than us. They're because of other people. They're because of opportunities that perhaps we don't even think about or deserve. Let's go to the third breakthrough. The third breakthrough I call the windbreaker. The windbreaker. You know, when you're in a storm or something, you need to have a little windbreaker. Sometimes if it's just kind of windy outside, what do? You put on a windbreaker. You put on something to kind of just keep you a little bit warm with the high winds. Or sometimes if you're in a major thing, you get behind something solid that breaks the wind for you. And what my windbreaker moments were is this encouraged me to stand, because the adversity of dreams wants to knock you flat. And so what happens is in this instance, I was able to stand because I had windbreakers in my life that protected me from the adverse winds of the dream that was trying to steal it from me. And again, I can go to the place. I can go to the time. 1982. I had just become pastor in San Diego, California. And I had a man visit me in the office one day. I really didn't want to visit him. He wasn't even a member of the church. And I was trying to get my hands around just learning the church. And my assistant had put his name on there. And what does he want? I'm not sure. And so he came in, and I kind of did this deal. What can I do to help you? You know, and hopefully I can close this thing out in 5 minutes. You probably have never done that, but I have many sins, and I'm dealing with one of them right now. Impatience, and okay, all right, what's the bottom line? May I heal you in a minute or less, and so we can go on. So, and when I asked him what he wanted and what I could do, he said, Pastor, he said, I'm not even a member of your church, but he said, for 10 years I've been praying for God to send a spiritual leader to San Diego community. And he said, I think you're the one. Well, I said, have you heard me preach? He said, no. I said, do you know anything about me? He said, very little. He said, I just think you're the one. And I want to be your prayer partner. I'm offering that I'll pray for you every day. He said, I have the gift of intercessory prayer, and I will pray for you. And he said, not only will I pray for you, he said, I'll raise up other prayer partners to pray for you. His name was Bill Klassen. And he did. That man came and joined the church. In fact, he went home to his wife and said, well, I found the church we're going to join. And she said, have you heard the pastor preach? He said, no, but she said, I heard him pray. And he's going to be our pastor. And he came in, and we developed 100 prayer partners that absolutely filled the auditorium every Sunday before the services ever began, laid hands on every seat, covered the whole place with just a power and anointing of God, then came and laid hands on me and prayed for me, and then went into the upper room in shifts and prayed throughout all the services. And it was the most awesome experience I've ever had as a pastor in my life, building and having these prayer partners. I watched them grow spiritually. Now, here's interesting. What's my dream? To add value to people. And then I started off my groundbreaker by adding value myself by personal growth. And then my icebreaker allowed me to understand I could add value to leaders. And now what's happening about this adding value at this windbreaker? Here's what I've discovered. Others started adding value to me. That it wasn't a one-way street. That others were adding value to me, and they were all of a sudden, they were helping me, and they were coming alongside and partnering with me. In fact, in the book, Put Your Dream to the Test, one of the questions is the people question. Have I included the people I need to realize my dream? Well, the prayer partners is just one example. In fact, we over the next 15 years, literally enlisted in churches across America over 1 million prayer partners for churches. But they were windbreakers for me. And the question for you is very simple. Who are the windbreakers of my dream? Who are the ones that stand up and help me with the difficulties and adversities and come around me and help me to withstand the issues that sometimes come when the dream is there? Because you got to have them. I have to have them. No man stands alone. Life is way too difficult, and dreams are way too steep to climb to do it all on your own. So who are the windbreakers in my life that give me the breakthroughs? Let's go to number 4. The fourth breakthrough is what I call a cloud breaker. You know, what happens if you're flying a plane, in a plane, and you break through the clouds? What happens? All of a sudden you can see. Everything's beautiful, everything's bright. All of a sudden, it's not just barely see out your window. All of a sudden, you can see for miles. What happened? Well, you broke the clouds. You broke the clouds, and all of a sudden, you see what you didn't see. All of a sudden, your whole picture is bigger. The parameters of your vision are so much larger. And again, in my dream to add value to people, I had a cloud breaker breakthrough. Back in 1985, I went up to Arrowhead Springs. That's where Bill Bright had his Campus Crusade for Christ headquarters. And I had met him, and we had done a few things together. I had spoken for his school, and so we had a good relationship. But I was in the middle of a $35 to $40 million relocation deal in San Diego with the church, and I was just overwhelmed. And Dr. Bright has the gift of faith. So I went up and had lunch with him, and we spent a couple of hours together, and I just poured out my heart about the church and the relocation and all the zoning issues and all the stuff that consumes a local pastor. And he listened and then prayed over me, and we just had the most wonderful time. And then he said, John, have you got a few extra minutes? Well, I said, of course. He said, I'd like to show you something that I'm about to launch, he said, that I think will bring the Great Commission to the world. And there we sat there in his office, and he put in the TV the Jesus film. He said, I'm getting ready to launch this Jesus film. And he said, millions upon hundreds of millions are going to get saved. Now, and Dr. Bright had no braggadocio to him at all. He was a humble man who had great faith. So he made statements that were out of sight. But it wasn't because he thought so highly of himself, but he thought so highly of God. Now get the picture. Get the picture. I want you to get this because this always brings great amusement to me. I'm talking about a cloud breaker. I go to him with a $35 million moving dirt issue. And for 2 hours, he listens and gives advice and prays for me. So when I get done with my 80 acres, he then says, could we talk about winning the world for God? And I'll never forget, while I'm watching this, I'm crying and I'm laughing. I'm crying because I'm under conviction of how I thought this was such an amazing thing we're doing in San Diego, and it's a drop in a bucket compared to what the big things God's going to do in the Jesus film. And then I'm laughing. I'm laughing at myself, and I'm saying to myself, John, get over it. No matter what you're doing, it isn't the biggest thing in the kingdom. It was a cloud breaker for me. You know what I was able to do? I want to add value to people, and then I wanted to add value to leaders. The moment I saw this Jesus film and I saw this vision of Dr. Bright, you know what? All of a sudden I said to myself, I'm going to be able to add value to more leaders, not just the leaders that are in my room. I'm going to be able to add value to maybe thousands, maybe millions of leaders. All he did was take me up higher and let me see more clearly that there's a bigger picture than what I was involved in. It was a cloud breaker for me. Let's go to number 5. The 5th breaker in my life, as far as my dreams, is what I call the tiebreaker. Now, we know what a tiebreaker is. A tiebreaker is something that in a sporting contest, the teams are tied. What's going to break the tie? I mean, who's going to win? Now, in my life, I'm going to finish this sentence and I'm going to explain it. The tiebreaker in my life for my dream encouraged me to serve. Up until this time, I was not good at serving. Now, the date is simple, 1995, and I was sensing that it was time for me to go into the national, international ministry and to resign my church at Skyline. And I was very conflicted about it. I knew I should do it, but there were some things I had not finished at the church that I wanted to do. And so I settled that issue, and then I got into this other issue of the fact that in San Diego, I own the city. Anywhere I go, it's kind of like here. Anywhere you go now, Christ Fellowship, everybody knows Christ Fellowship. My goodness, I mean, I think sometimes there's more people that go to Christ Fellowship than is in the population of West Palm Beach. Sometimes I think, they must, just everywhere. Well, in San Diego, that's what it was, and all of a sudden I realized I'm not going to have anything. Show and tell is going to be over for me. What do leaders do? Leaders say, well, here's the building I built, and this is the land we're buying, and this is the campus we're starting. That's what leaders do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what leaders create, leaders build, leaders develop. And all of a sudden, I was going to lose all my show and tell. I wasn't going to have a church to point to. I was just going to travel on airplanes and speak, write some books. And I really went for about 3 to 4 months on this issue of what could I do, what should I do. And I really got over resigning the church issue quite easily. But I didn't get over the issue of what am I going to quote, what am I going to have to point to? And I'll never forget, it was settled very simple. Talk about settling the tiebreaker, the conflict in my life. On this dream, it was settled very quickly. God began to show me that what I should do is when I left the church, I should pick 10 people, 10 great Christian leaders, and serve them as long as I could add value to them. And I made my list. I still have that list today of those 10 people that I would serve, that I would add value. I'd come alongside of them. I'd do whatever I could to help their ministry. And the whole concept began to really motivate me because here's the principle. John, if you'll go to bigger men than you are and better men than you are, and you'll add value to them, your ministry will be much bigger and better than what you could ever do it by yourself anyway. And I really began to grasp it. I really got to see it. So I wrote those 10 names down, and I diligently, over the next few years, served them. Now, I still have 10 names. I've felt that 10 names is my calling. And most of the time, I don't even tell the person that I should serve them for a while. I just serve them for a while, and then someday in the right time, it falls in place. And the names come and go. Some of them excuse me, some of them I served for a season, you know what I mean, a month or two, and some of them for a couple of years. This is very significant to me to be able to share this here. There was only one person on my list 10 years ago that's still on my list. Pastor Tom. When I saw him and what he was starting to do, I felt pulled to serve him. That's why it's such a joy. And I have other people that I serve. Some of them are lower profile than pastor. Some of them are higher profile. It doesn't really matter. That isn't part of the issue. The issue is it was a tiebreaker in my life. And I'm going to tell you something. In your dream, you're going to have some place in your dream where you're going to look at, here's what I really want for myself, and here's what would really be best. And I want to tell you something. It won't be the same thing. I promise you that. And the tiebreaker for me was when I realized I could pour my life into others and I could serve value to them. So now where are we in this adding value dream? All right, now notice what's happened in my dream in this breakthrough. I'm now adding value to specific leaders. Do you see how the dream keeps getting refined and molded because of these breakthroughs? Number 6. Oh, and by the way, ask yourself the question at the end of each breakthrough. You know, this one, what is the tiebreaker of my dream? I promise you, some of you are already wrestling with one. And what am I going to do and what decision am I going to make? Number 6 is the chart breaker. When you think of something off the charts, you think of something that has soared and just gone bigger and higher than you could have ever imagined. And the chart breaker, this encouraged me to soar. This one got my dream to a whole new level, way beyond anything I could have imagined. I can tell you when the breakthrough happened, 1996, when I sensed at the same time I was leaving San Diego at the church that I ought to start Equip, that I ought to start a ministry to train leaders internationally, and not only start Equip, but as I looked at it, I thought, oh my goodness, I not only need to start international ministries, train leaders, but as I this chart breaker, this was huge. All of a sudden I said, I want to partner with others to do it. I want to give everybody else the credit for it. I don't want big buildings. Again, I don't want all the stuff I don't want huge staff. I just want to find ministries and organizations around the world that want leaders trained, and we'll partner with them, and so therefore we'll serve them. And I remember when I sent out a partnership letter to major organizations around the world saying, I've got an organization, and what we'll do is just train your leaders. So if you'll just notify us, we'll begin to start training your leaders. And I was so shocked. For the first 6 months, I only got 2 replies. And I kept thinking, what's wrong? What am I missing? So I started calling these people on the phone. Some of these people I knew. And I can tell you exactly what was missing. It was too good to be true for these people. They couldn't imagine an organization that would go train their leaders without asking anything in return. Or what are you going to do when you train them? Are you going to take them from us? All the paranoia that comes with our group, my group team. And when they begin to understand, no, there are no strings attached. We don't even want your people. We just want to make them better for you. We want to train your leaders. And then it began to cascade. In fact, I just received a letter yesterday from John Hall, who's the president of Equip. And just this week, we signed our 100th partnership around the world. In other words, we partner now with 100 organizations worldwide to train leaders. Now, do you see what's happening to my dream? This chart breaker is just now, I'm soaring. We're getting way beyond anything we could ever imagine. And see, what do I want to do? I want to add value to people. Well, then I want to add value to leaders. Well, those people are going to add value back to me. And I'm going to add value to specific leaders. And you see how it's just continually getting bigger and bigger. Now at this breakthrough, the chart breaker, guess what I'm doing? I'm adding value to leaders who are what? Multiplying value to leaders. Now we're compounding. This breakthrough has me in a compounding state. Again, the question for all of us is, what is the chart breaker of my dream? What just causes me to soar? Number 7. 2 more, gang. 2 more. Number 7 is a heartbreaker. I think every great dream has a heartbreaker in it. I think usually the heartbreaker is not exposed in the beginning, because if it did, we wouldn't have heart to pursue it. Dreams are fun in the beginning, aren't they? Think about a dream in the beginning. I mean, you're just sitting around the table with 2 or 3 of your buddies, and you're sketching out something you'd like to maybe do together. Dreams are fun in the beginning because guess what? In the beginning, there's no price to be paid. There's no people to be enlisted. There's no cost involved. There's no adversity. I mean, dreams are fun in the beginning. But in that dream somewhere, I'll promise you, you'll have a heartbreaker. And this heartbreaker encouraged me to stop. Now, isn't that interesting? I had a groundbreaker that encouraged me to start, and now I've got a heartbreaker that encouraged me to stop. Now, when I said encouraged me to stop, it encouraged me to stop everything I was doing and reevaluate. It happened in 1998, my heart attack. It literally was a heartbreaker. I could remember in Grady Hospital the night when they weren't certain I would make it, and I had 6 doctors kept talking to themselves and working on me. I can remember I was 51 years of age, and I kept asking myself, is my mission really done? And I didn't have anxiety. I can tell you, I know what the peace of God, I know all about that. Death kind of, I view it much differently now because I thought I was going to die. I mean, I wasn't anxious. But I kept asking myself the question, is this it? I mean, is my mission for God done? And I kept thinking, it can't be done yet. I still got stuff I want to accomplish, and I went through that process quite a bit that evening, and fortunately God spared my life, and I had wonderful doctors and all of those good things that happened. But I'll tell you what it allowed me to do. It allowed me to stop and understand that if I didn't take care of myself, I couldn't take care of anybody else. Dead people don't add value to others' lives. They just don't. They're dead. Wonderful life. Touchdown. Dead. It really caused me to stop, reprioritize myself. And notice this. Remember when I got the prayer partners and I had that wonderful windbreaker breakthrough, and they began to come around me and break the wind of adversity. This heartbreaker, instead of having other people add value to me, I began to add value to myself. I'm back to adding value to myself. Now we close out with one more breakthrough. The record breaker. Whenever you think of a record breaker, it's the person who did something that no one else has done, or they broke something that is amazing kind of a feat. And my record breaker encourages me to smile. It really does. And today I'm living the dream. I'm experiencing today the value and understanding the value of adding value to others. And I was interviewed yesterday. They were doing for a magazine that'll come out in a couple of months. And in the interview, they said, now, what do you yet want to accomplish? And I know I disappointed them because it was a success magazine. I really do. I know I disappointed them because they were wanting me to say, well, next I want to do this. And I said, I would like to do better what I'm doing now. I hope I'm not lazy. I hope I'm not lethargic. But I'd just like to do better what I'm doing now. I'd like to write better books than I'm writing now. I'd like to communicate better than I'm communicating now. I'd like to teach lessons here better than I'm teaching now. I'd like to serve Tom and Todd better than I have so far. I want to get better. But I don't have any ambitions I don't need to start anything again, don't need to lead anything again. Been there, done that, loved every moment of it. Great contentment. Here it is. Here's the best way I can phrase it. I'm living my dream. I'm living it. And I think if I do better, I'll live it more fully. But I'm living my dream. I'm not going somewhere else to get my, to finally get my dream. It's not some destination or some place or some person. I'm living my dream. And I put it in your notes. After years of trying to make my dream, I have now discovered that my dream made me. That's a fact. All those years I'm trying to make my dream, make my dream, make my dream, make my dream. And these breakthroughs that we're talking about, these 8 breakthroughs, they molded me. And today I would say, I didn't make the dream made me. And when you realize that, instead of gloating about the dream, you're grateful for the dream. It's a whole different perspective. Well, what's the record breaker in your dream? Many of you aren't there yet. It's okay. It's a journey. I gave you 8 breakthroughs, and there are some of you probably have 4 or 5 of them already under your belt. Some of you maybe haven't got any of them under your belt. Some of you may have 8 and say, John, as soon as the lesson's over, I've got another one to teach you. I have no idea, but I know this. Somewhere in your dream, you're going to need to have those breakthroughs. Never did I think that I would, in my lifetime, speak to the United Nations, West Point, Promise Keepers. Next Monday, Martin Luther King Day, a few years ago, the King family asked me at Ebenezer Baptist Church, been national TV, to be the speaker for Martin Luther King family that day. And I mean, all these things. Billy Graham's 50th anniversary. Meet privately with leaders of nations. Never was that on my dream list. My dream list was simple. I want to add value to others. Period. Mother Teresa said, I have people all the time come to me and say, I'd like to change the world. And she said, I always look at them and say, well, why don't you start with one? Just one. That's step one of changing the world, is change one. Equip Now is in 116 countries, 42 languages, just past 3 million leaders trained. 28% of those who have gone through our 3 years of training want to plant churches. You want to do some we're not even a church planting organization, and we're planting tens of thousands of churches. Just adding value to people. Had the publishers meeting yesterday with Thomas Nelson, just past 16 million books. I was asked yesterday in the interview with Success Magazine, they said, John, what motivated you to start writing books? And I said, it's just very simple. One day I woke up and said, if I'm going to add value to people beyond the people I'm in personal contact with, I've got to have a medium. I've got to have a channel. And I said, I started writing books. I didn't start writing books because I like to write. I didn't start writing books because I'm a good writer, because I didn't like to write in the beginning, and I wasn't a good writer in the beginning. So I'm 0 for 2. But I did want to add value to others. See, the dream that has made me, these breakthroughs that allowed me to get to the next stage of my life, very simply, I look at them today and I'm very grateful. And then here's what I know about you, and this is why this lesson is being taught to you. You have a dream. Yeah, you do. And I don't know where you are on your journey, but here's what I know. The more reasons you have for achieving the dream, the higher your odds that you'll get it. And in my book, Put Your Dream to the Test, go through the 10 questions. Answer from a 1 to a 10, 1 being no, a 10 being a high, absolute yes. Go through them and evaluate them, and you'll find that in some areas you're doing better than other areas, and then start working on it. But here's what I know. After you answer yes to all the dream questions, and after you read the book, I can still promise you that you and I need breakthroughs in our lives, things that will help us move forward, that will mold us. And here's what I know. In closing, it will happen to you. Because when God gives you a dream, He also will provide the breakthroughs you need for that dream to be accomplished. Thank you very much.